back. Hope you're having a good day. This is my rabbit's foot acacia. I'm going to be giving this guy a hard prune today along with a repot. I'm also going to update you at the end of the video. I'm going to update you on my sweet acacia seeds that have sprouted. So let's look at this tree here. You can see it's got plenty of blooms on it. Got some new ones. Got some old faded out ones. Some of these ones that are in white are not quite as faded as the others here. There's another new one. All kinds of new smaller ones that haven't quite came out yet. And then I've had this tree for about 1.5 years. And after the hurricane and the hard freeze that we had, grew leaves back down here and on these lower couple branches. And then up here, it's really just kept like a leaf or two the entire time. And right now, as I've got all this blooming going on, I do see some sprouts up here. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a closer look up here in a minute. But one of my biggest complaints about this tree, I like it. I like the aged-looking bark on it. I love the blooms and everything. I got it because it had some initial movement in it, but I've never gotten anything to bud, this way. So, it's got this branch, and then these two, and then just basically an apex. Well, it's got a little sprout right here, and then it also has a sprout here. And again, I'm going to give you a closer look up here in a second. Thought about doing all kinds of things, maybe cutting the apex halfway back, but I think I'm going to chop it. All right, and with a little bit of a closer look, this is the sprout that's finally coming on this side of the tree that I've never had one. And then you can see up here in the apex, just got really weak growth that's finally coming out. There's a bud there, a little one there and everything. But the idea here is that I'm going to go ahead and try to get this to be the new leader, this bud here. And then with me cutting all that apex off, hopefully, I can even get another bud maybe even under this one. But at the very least, I can let this go ahead and grow as well. And it should get a lot of that energy that would have been going up here. And that'll make a decent branch. And then again, another apex there. I have been trying to keep most of my trees kind of small. So, it'll shorten it up some. I try to take the cutting, but from what I understand, acacia don't really take all that well to cuttings. Mostly they grow fairly quickly, so you can grow them from seed. I had seed pods on this tree last year, and I tried to take seeds. I tried to take seeds and grow them way too early. First, they were way too green, and then I let another pod get a lot older, and evidently I let it get a little bit too old. It turned into practical dust when I took it off. So I might try again later this year. It just depends on how quickly it recovers from the repot here. I may go ahead and start cutting the blooms off just so that it puts more energy into recovering instead of growing seeds for a while. But we'll see. Those seeds I tried were actually last fall. After this goes through a summer in Florida, it should be plenty recovered. So this thing already had a couple of old chop scars, one even right here, that is not enveloping over all that quickly as like you would expect on a ficus, or even for me on a rain tree. So I'm going to try to cut it fairly close. There is this little sprout here is right at the base of some dieback with a dead branch there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to angle it just a little bit and get relatively close, not so much to the sprout, but to that branch there. And as long as that sprout is still viable, I think that was close enough. Should heal that wound fairly quickly. Alright, the rest of the work I'm going to do is just kind of in advance of the repot. Because I'd like some of the energy to go to the other side of the tree, go ahead and just cut off the end of this. A couple blooms on it, a couple blooms on that, but just shorten that up a little bit. And again, try to let some of that energy feed into the rest of the tree. Cut the end of this guy off. Now we can look at it even a little bit closer up there. I'm going to leave all the length on these lower branches, but I'm going to take off definitely all the blooms that have bloomed already. This one is just about, you can see just there, it's just about to start. That's where it would be purple, and that's the yellow in there. And take that off. There's another new one there. This leaf's damaged somehow. Take off the older one of those. And on these lower branches here, I do have a secondary branch growing from each one of them. I'm going to go ahead. I said I wanted to leave all that length. I do want to leave as much as possible, but I am going to cut just the end off. This one actually has kind of two secondaries, so I'm going to cut just the end off of both of these secondaries here. I'm going to lose a couple more blooms too, but I'm just trying to repot it and keep it healthy. I'm not really trying to worry about it blooming too much. All right, before we get in here and see what we got, a couple of the reasons I decided to go ahead and do this. It's got two surface roots showing. This one actually has a real skinny spot. If you guys can see that or not. A real skinny spot right at the trunk. And then comes out and is connected to this one, which is hitting the side of the pot, and then you can see it circles in there. This one's a little bit thicker and actually seems as if I cut it may cause a little bit of inverse taper. But I would like to do something with it. You know, I've had it for a year and a half. I had that rule, like, you know, right when I buy a tree, I don't repot it like that day unless there's, you know, something sickly about it or something. But I don't do any hard work on it that day unless it's sick and really needs an emergency repot, like I'm rescuing it from Walmart or something. But you never really know how long it was in here. And over the winter, when I noticed, you know, how much that apex was not growing, I got in here just to look a couple times, and it is just like super light. And although it doesn't seem to have much going on down here, it does seem to have a lot of wrapping roots around the top, and they seem, or they look, the surface roots seem kind of old and lignified, while there was plenty of fresh roots all gathered at the bottom, but it seemed to be also full at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take at least not that much off, rake them out a little bit, try to see if I feel confident enough to work those surface roots some, and then just get it in some better substrate, most likely right back in the pot I came from, and see if, you know, it'll grow a nice new healthy apex again, and just see how it works out. Let's see, I usually start off some with my fingers. One thing I noticed about this one is that my Sweet Acacia tree, when you get into the roots like this, that's actually another mention here is just, I noticed how light it is, and it's all just really roots and then pine bark. So I'm thinking some better substrate might help it there too. But what I was about to say about the Sweet Acacia is the Sweet Acacia getting into the roots like that and digging in there, it would already be stinking something terrible. I've heard that it's some kind of a way to attract the ants, which then help with another pest to acacia. I'm not 100% sure, as some of the information was very vague, but I do understand it's normal for those roots to stink. I don't smell anything on this one. And get some of this stuff off the surface. And let's see what we got here with these surface roots. And that one comes off there and just wraps around there. I definitely don't want to plant it any deeper than it already was. So I'm going to eliminate that. This one coming out there. Now this one's coming out straight, doesn't seem to be wrapping too much. I'm going to leave that one. Dig around this other thick one just a little bit and see if I can possibly either straighten it out or, like I said, just feel kind of comfortable cutting it off. And sometimes the side I have the camera on here, I'm left-handed. I always think I'm going to work it on that side, but every now and again I forget. And I do some work that's not in view of the camera. Sorry about that. Don't really want to dive in here and bare root it any more than it already is. Here's one here. Didn't really get close enough to that surface root to figure it out, but I definitely don't like it. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it off. And then rather than unraveling it, I'll just cut it off there. And once again, I go in there working with my right hand again. And I think that's about all I want to do to it. I do want to go ahead and get it planted at least as deep as those surface roots there. If I was trying to get it in a bonsai pot right now, I might go a little more aggressive, but I don't think it's quite established enough for that yet. I'm just going to go ahead and get it back into where it was. And you can see there now how much, so it'll have that much better substrate under it. And the way those roots are looking healthy in the organic soil there, it really should grow really well in some better soil. All right, let's go ahead and get some substrate in the bottom of the pot. I want to make sure I leave enough room to get some substrate on top of those surface roots there. Alright, hit this guy with its American chopstick. You know, with that super light bark substrate before, and with that higher apex, was actually kind of prone to a little bit of blowing over in the summer too. Now with this more denser substrate and a shorter apex, this may turn out to be a little more stable of a tree as well. Alright, and if my instincts are correct, this thing will probably only sulk for a day or two. I'd almost bet within a week or so these blooms are looking good on it. Alright, and we will get to those Sweet Acacia seedlings here in just a second. I haven't had a chance to edit that video yet. That was 7 days ago, and so here we are now. It's really looking nice. I have had it in the shade the whole time. Already getting some nice looking blooms on it. Plenty of new growth. And I brought it in here mainly just to show it off. But then also at this point, I think I can see all kinds of very small flower blooms in there. And so I'm going to take off all the larger ones for now, just so it can start putting its energy into growing new leaves. Can barely see sometimes. And since there's plenty of little buds too, it still should be able to put on a show. Someone asked in one of the forums how long those buds last. I should have pointed it out. These were purple just yesterday, and there was nothing on it the day before. And then tomorrow, these ones that are purple now would be white. Eventually, they do make some pretty cool looking seed pods. All right, and then here are the Sweet Acacia sprouts, if you will. I posted that video almost exactly a month ago of when I showed them sprouted, so that means these were planted, I think, about 2 weeks before that. So these are about 5-6 weeks old. 100% germination and 100% survival so far. All of the pots have one tree in them except for the two middle ones. The two middle ones each have two. And there's two schools of thought there. And one of those would be just, cut out the weaker one. And then the other one would be to try to take the weaker one out, or in this case, I'm going to try to leave the one in the center of the pot. They're both about the same size. I guess that one is a little smaller. Try to leave this one in the center of the pot and just try to get that one out. I have a couple peat pots here. I would like to get a couple of these. When I first bought the Sweet Acacia, I was going to put it in the yard. And then, I came home with it. I mean, I paid $2 for that first one. I came home with it and I saw it was so small there was no way I could just put it in the yard. I'd probably run over the lawnmower and forget it was there. And then just kind of, the more I let it grow, the more I realized, I don't even think I was in the hobby yet when I bought it. And then the more I realized, I was like, oh, I could use this as a little bonsai tree. So the other, what do I got down there? I'm going to wind up having, 8 in single pots. And then, of course, this one will be left in this pot. But this one I'm going to try to get it in here. And then the idea with these peat pots is you can just kind of bury it all at one point in the ground after you've let it get to a good survivable size. And then since now I'm in the hobby and I kind of know how to work them a little more, I could even go ahead and work the roots some and then plant it in the yard. Should get lots of blooms and everything that's native to my area, so it should be fine. But let's see if I can get one of these out of here. I just got finished with that other video with the other acacia tree, and I pulled all the roots out that I could. I should be able to have just enough leftover soil with that. It's pretty decent soil still, especially since I broke it up. So let's see. You can already smell that stink that seems to go along with these. As I said before, everybody says it's normal. Smell those roots though. And there we go, went ahead and separated it. This one can go back in here. Right as I was putting it back in there, I was almost thinking maybe I should put the bigger one in the peat pot, but too late now. Get some of that substrate in there. Alright, so that worked out well. I did lose a little substrate in that other pot, so I'm going to have to add a little more. Obviously, I just took out a tree. And boy, that smell, they say the name Sweet Acacia comes from the flowers which are actually used for perfume in some countries and everything. But boy, those root balls got a pungent smell to them. Alright, here's the other one with 2 in it. This is a really small pot. I didn't have much dirt in there to begin with. When I go to do this one, I'm probably going to go ahead and try to get a little substrate under it as well. Just to have the one that I'm going to leave in here with a little more substrate to grow in. Quite a bit smaller than the other one. And phew, there is that smell again. Alright, go ahead. I'm going to pluck that smaller one off the side. Even though that one fell apart a little more, I may go ahead and just put this one right back out in the sun. I didn't really disturb that one nearly as much as the other two. And when I say I'm going to put these that I did disturb out in the shade, I really do just mean for a day or two. These tropical seedlings just love the sunlight. So don't ever fool yourself that, this thing, plus the wind out there will help the trunk get thicker and better. It's just so much better if they're out there where they would naturally be. And then this one here, I had to get a little more. I got just a little bit of potting mix. I didn't have quite enough left over from that other repotting. But I'm going to get it into one of these peat pots too. And there we go. And I will get that one just in a little bit of shade until I see it growing again. Thanks for watching.